Okay. So I'm Carly Aubrey, case planner for the project, and we also have members of staff here. We have the city manager, Wyatt Shields, and Akita Ruzzi, who is helping me with this project, along with a couple representatives from the Falls Church Gateway Partner Team, Laura Schoenfeld with Hoffman, and then we should have Gabriella Canamar with Land Design joining soon to help with landscaping questions. So the purpose of today's town hall is to provide a brief summary of the presentations that were given at 2 recent city council work sessions, which were held on April 5th and April 12th. And these work sessions were focused on the plan elements of transportation, environment, urban design, and fiscal impact. So just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Please keep your microphones muted unless you're going to ask a question or provide a comment. More information about this project can be found at www.fallschurchva.gov/WFC. I have posted that information in the chat box along with my contact information. This webpage does include current and past application materials, past and upcoming meeting dates, and staff contact information. And this town hall is being recorded and will be posted on the project webpage by the end of the week. So in terms of agenda, I'll give a brief timeline for the entitlement process for this project. FCGP team members will walk through slides covering transportation, environment, and urban design, and then I will discuss the updated fiscal impact analysis. And then we will have a Q&A session. Comments and questions may be placed in the chat, sent to my email, or sent via text to my number, which again is in the chat box. So for history and next steps for this project, the special exception entitlement was approved in July of 2019. And this provided the conceptual site design and use program for the project, a special exception entitlement application, an amendment to that application, and a special exception site plan for phase 1 were submitted in June of 2020. And those have gone through the board and commission reviews, as well as city council reviews and school board. And a second submission was received in January of 2021. The Planning Commission recommended approval at their April 7th meeting. And in addition to the 2 recently held council work sessions, a 3rd work session is scheduled for May 3rd to discuss affordable dwelling units and voluntary concessions. And a public hearing for city council final action is tentatively scheduled for May 24th. The webpage will be updated soon with links to the recordings of those meetings. So at this time, I will turn it over to Falls Church Gateway Partners, Billy Laura, to walk through the slides for the topics of discussion today. And I will pull that up now.
Perfect. Thanks, Carly. Yes, I'm Laura Schoenfeld from Hoffman and Associates. And many of you have seen different parts of this presentation in the last 4 to 5 months that we've been discussing the second round of the SESP application. So I'm going to just run through, again, the areas that we focused on in the last 2 weeks, but we are open to answer any questions or provide more information. So just to refamiliarize everybody with the current site, we have that. Thank you, Carly. We have it pulled up on the presentation right now. So just going from the corner of 7 and Haycock, we have the A1 building, which is a approximately 400 unit apartment building, and a large national grocer is on the first floor, in addition to retail that we have on the first floor of every building. Sorry, mainly with the retail facades focused on the kind of common central area, which we'll talk about in a second. Going up kind of page north, the D1 building is senior housing that's going to be developed in partnership with another development team. And then next to that is the D2 garage, which has parking for the apartment, for the senior, and for general retail or other visitors to the site. Then we cross over the commons area and go to C1, which is a 127 unit condo building that is kind of stepped back from the high school. On the high school side, you can see the little steps in the plan. Going south, we have B2 is an extended stay hotel next to another parking garage. Next to another parking garage that will be for some retail use and school use, but also for the office below, which is B1, which is being developed with Trammell Crow, who is our development partner on that project. And then again, this commons is kind of the central spine. We have one-way traffic going north and then back around and south. And it's going to be kind of our open area that has a lot of different flexibility for people to use, and we can get into that in the placemaking, but there's open park area, different areas to sit. It's really going to be the active core of the site, and then bordered by all of this great retail that's going to bring a lot of vibrancy on the commons. Carly, do you want me to answer these questions as they're coming in, or you want to answer, we should answer them all at the end?
Whichever you prefer.
I mean, the first two that have come in terms of the grocer, we are under a non-disclosure agreement with the grocer, and it probably will be announced only, I would say, in the 6 months before the grocer opens. That's just how this national chain has determined their plans moving forward. So unfortunately, we won't be able to give any more information on that, but a lease is signed and we are moving forward on it. And then the question with the senior is 60% per the comprehensive agreement will be a kind of a active adult living, and then there will also be assisted living and memory care making up the other 40%. So it's kind of all different levels of care for or independence for seniors. Hopefully those answered the two questions that came in, but I'm happy to discuss them further. Right now we're standing in the middle of the commons. I just put a few renderings at the beginning to give you a little bit more of a sense of how the space is going to feel. Standing in the commons, we're looking at Route 7 with the schools kind of to our right. But what you're seeing here is, again, the active life in the commons, the activity of the retail at the first floor in the apartment. That's the main building that you're seeing in front of you. And then to the right, you are seeing kind of a little bit of the older office design, but the office facade. You can go to the next one. Now we have turned around and the apartment is to our back, and now we're looking at the extended stay hotel next to the condo building, and then the school is behind what we're looking at right now. So again, you see that first floor retail activity is all the way around the commons. Next slide. And now we're standing, well, we're kind of standing high up in the air that you would never actually stand this high, but we are looking at Route 7 to our left and Haycock to our right, and we're looking at the main entry to the grocer, which is again at the first floor of the apartment building. And you can kind of see that the grocer is 2 floors at this point and kind of goes up to being 1 floor as you turn into the commons, and that's because of the 27-foot grade difference between the corner of Haycock and 7 and where the commons portion of the project starts. So hopefully this gives a little bit of life to what we're talking about. Now back to a more technical drawing. One of the pieces that we have been working on is how to get people in and out of the commons. So right now we are looking at this stoplight is going to be added. We've been working with not only Falls Church, but Fairfax County, DOT, and VDOT to have a stoplight so that people can turn in and out of commons. But then, as you can see here, commons is at the center. We're looking at Route 7, thinking about across the street where Chestnut Street goes through. There's a lot of concern from Fairfax County about calming traffic and not having Chestnut be a cut through. And then also we wanted to make sure that the owners on that side of the street also want to make sure that they have access to this stoplight, but we needed to kind of create a straight intersection instead of very diagonal intersection. That wouldn't really work. So through a lot of different discussions, we came up with this plan where you're seeing these green portions added. So Chestnut will actually end. You won't drive through straight from Chestnut to 7 as you do now, and you kind of we're creating through the parking lot. You kind of turn and then turn up to be able to go to the stoplight, which will also calm traffic and probably limit the amount of people cutting through Chestnut because it's a little bit more complicated now, but also give both sides of Route 7 left in, left out access from a stoplight. So we're excited that we've been able to kind of come up with this plan to make this additional ease of movement in the area. Next page, please. So I put in this diagram because at a lot of these meetings, questions have come up about circulation on the site, and we can go into this in more detail when we get to the Q&A period. But basically, I think what's important to understand is that Mustang Alley, which we're kind of seeing at the top and then going down the left side, is a two-way street at all times except at school drop-off and pickup. Then for about that 45 minutes in the morning and the afternoon, the bus lane on the left-hand side becomes a one-way street only going out for buses to park in. And then in general, there's a lot of movement kind of around the commons, but also within the site to keep traffic flowing with the neighborhood, but also allow easy access to all the buildings and the garages, even if the center area ends up closed down for some portions of different activities or festivals or things like that, which is one of the great features of the commons. Not only will it be used every day, but it can kind of change shape and size by different kind of road closures to allow bigger festivals and things like that to happen maybe on weekends or at the holidays. Next page. So one of the questions that has come up, actually, sorry, can you go back one? Carly, thanks. So one of the questions that has come up is a lot of students are coming from the federal site or kind of that part of the city and crossing over, and how they're going to get from one side of Haycock to the school on the other side. And so we have created a stoplight where Carly has the little hand. We'll be putting a stoplight in that connects you to the street to come into the site. But then the question of, again, that 27-foot grade exists here too. So we didn't want to have a really steep street that wasn't really accessible or comfortable to use. So we actually have created a grand staircase with an elevator that's what we're going to show on the next page. But it's really kind of sweeping you in and getting you to come up, and then you get to the level of the commons and walk across and are entering into the commons, and then you can keep going to the high school. So if you go to the next slide. This is kind of what your experience is going to be in looking from the federal site. So you can see in the bottom right image, you have the brick is surrounding kind of the garage. So you are kind of brought in at this wider area that then kind of narrows down a little bit to the staircase. So you come up the stairs, the building again on your left-hand side is kind of pushed back, so it's a lot more open. You come up the stairs, and then at the same point at basically where the stairs are, there's also going to be an elevator, because we want to make sure the experience for no matter how you're getting upstairs, if you are in a wheelchair, if you have a stroller, if you have a bike that you don't want to bring up the stairs, that you also have a great experience of that. So you come up the stairs and up the elevator, and then this top right image is where you end up when you get off the stairs or the elevator, and you're seeing this kind of direct visual access to the commons, and it's going to there'll be some murals, there'll be great lights, so it's going to feel like an inviting, great place to spend time, not just a direct pathway. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So this is the landscaping plan, and again, we do have Gabby, our landscape architect, on the phone to answer landscaping questions, because I know a lot of people have had questions at previous town halls. But you can see we have really varied tree canopy and a lot of different plantings that are going to be in the site, in addition to bioretention areas, really using a lot of the rainwater, making sure that we are improving. I know there have been a lot of flooding concerns and things like that from people in Falls Church, and so making sure that we are making this feel like a great space, but also actively taking care of stormwater issues through our planning. And again, we can go into more detail in the Q&A on that. Let's go to the next. So I wanted to put in a couple of pieces from the placemaking plan. I think this is what really makes the space feel great and alive. Not only will we have exciting building architecture and slow moving traffic and a lot of great spaces for pedestrians and people to and cafe seating, but we're going to have different shaded areas, all different kinds of seating and different kinds of art to really make the space feel vibrant and exciting and kind of an opportunity for discovery as you turn the corner at every different portion. So this is, again, a little bit of a busy plan to be looking at, especially on a small computer screen, but it's just showing some of the ideas that we have, how really our placemaking is going to be centered at the Commons, but there will be different pieces of art or plantings or seating that kind of spread out from the Commons to bring that life and vibrancy throughout the site. Next page. And then when I was talking about possibly closing down maybe one or two of the kind of center streets that surround the Commons to allow for larger events. We have a couple of, I think, 2 examples in here of something like a movie night where you kind of close down just that center part of the Commons, right under where it says acres. Yeah, that street would get closed so that you have this kind of one big Commons, and then you have different. Again, we have like a splash pad. We have open lawn where you would show a movie. We have fire pits. We have different areas throughout the Commons that could kind of come together as one. And you're seeing some examples of that being done at other similar projects as precedents of what that would look and feel like. Let's go to the next one. And then this is looking at if you kind of closed the streets that run around the Commons and create this kind of 1.42 acre open space. You could do something like a food truck festival, like Taste of Falls Church, where you would have different food brought in, different places to sit, different places, and so really big opportunity to feel like you have this really central park. I mean, like the note says here, it's more than 60,000 square feet of just kind of open space that is all pedestrian accessible. So we're excited about the Commons as an everyday use, but also its flexibility and kind of becoming larger for these special events. Next page. Another question that's often come up in these town halls is what are we doing for sustainability? And as you can see here, we have each of our projects are required to be LEED certified buildings. Everything is required to be gold, except the hotel is allowed to be silver. And we are continuing to refine the LEED scorecard so that we have not only the points to get to these levels, but some cushion points in case things change during the design to make sure that we achieve the levels we've agreed to with the city. In addition, the whole project is going to be LEED for neighborhood development, which has a lot to do with smart planning, pedestrian access, longevity of the project, access to public transit, and bike infrastructure and all of those pieces. So we're excited that we're creating not only sustainable buildings, but a sustainable site. So, and listed on here are kind of where we are. We have the LEED process has been discussed at site-wide and building-wide, and then we are continuing to work into adding those pieces into the drawings and making sure that we're meeting all of our goals every step of the way. Next page. So again, this is just pointing out some of the sustainable site elements that are going into our LEED for neighborhood design or neighborhood development gold level application, and that is making sure that we have these tree-lined streets. And again, we can discuss tree canopy or any other questions with Gabby. rainwater and stormwater management, like I was just mentioning with the landscaping, and then heat island effect, making sure that we have as much green roof as possible, light colored roofs, light colored concrete, and mixing that or balancing that with our stormwater management plan. Next page. Another question that has often come up is the amount of electric vehicle charging. This is, an issue that's evolving on a daily basis as more and more cars are going electric. So we are providing 11 electric vehicle charging spaces in our garages. We're planning to provide that at the opening, with 30 spaces kind of having the infrastructure and ready to become electric vehicle charging stations. Or spaces, sorry, and then we're looking at additional mechanisms to increase capacity. And I think the great thing is that as electric cars become more ubiquitous, then electric charging is a more worthwhile venture for the charging companies to get into, so they will often end up sponsoring or paying for bringing their equipment to the site. So that's why we're going to create all the kind of conduit and the infrastructure to allow this to happen. And things could continue evolving extensively in the next few years, and I think we'll have the opportunity to continue to follow that while this development's being built. Let's go to the next page. There were some questions. This was, Carly, I think we can hold on this one unless anybody has any specific questions. This is about the energy performance specific targets, and this kind of relates to some of the questions that have come up from the boards and commissions, but we can come back if anybody wants to discuss it further. It's just kind of how we've gotten to the energy targets that we are at. Let's go to next slide, which is the last, the last two, which are about the net annual fiscal impact of the project. So I don't know if we want to talk about questions on the first 15 slides before you do this part, Carly, or if you want to hop right into the fiscal impact.
Yeah, let's go ahead and open it up to questions on these, what we've seen so far. Let me... I haven't seen any since.
I'm seeing one.
Oh, I'm seeing one hand. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Amy.
Hi, yes. Thank you for this presentation, Laura. Could you explain to us again what pet amenities are going to be on the site?
So actually, great that we have Gabby here, who can discuss that in more detail. But Carly, can you go back to maybe like 10 or the page with the full site, but where you can see the tree plantings and all of that? That's probably the best. Or even here is fine too.
This is fine. Hi, Laura, and hi, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Gabriela Canemar-Clark. I'm a landscape architect for the project and happy to be here. The dog areas, and let me clarify, is more like a pet relief areas for the support of the sort of the dog owners of the neighborhood, of the new neighborhood that we're creating. So they're conveniently located on the streetscape near the sort of the lobby entrances through the project. So for example, on Block C, which is the northwest block, there is a pet relief area, which has basically, I can describe it as a designated space between sort of the tree planters that has adequate floor treatment and a dog waste disposal sort of station and cleanup station associated with it. So there's one located on Block C to the north along the, near the lobby area. There are two located on Mustang Alley on the northeast block, one near the senior living and then one near the future building D3. And there's another one located on Street B near the lobby for building A1, or just not in the main, not in the main sort of street in the commons, because we would like to focus that area for the retail uses and the sort of the festivals and all of the other amenities of the space. So there are 4 throughout the site at this moment. I hope that answered the question. Thank you.
Thanks, Gabby. So Carly, do you want to go to some of the, I'm just looking at questions that have come in on the chat. Carly, sorry, Gabby, maybe you want to take the trees one. Regarding the trees, can you provide some details around tree canopy, tree protection design, e.g. edge planters, etc.?
Yeah, I didn't read the specific question.
Sorry, it's in the chat.
Oh, let me open the chat.
Yeah. Sorry, I was seeing them pop up while you were talking. It's
So
this
it's around tree canopy, tree protection. Correct. Of course, tree canopy. The project is required to have the project. Let me just read it through my notes here. It's a 411,671 square feet of development, of which we are providing 60%, 16.4% of tree canopy, equating to 74,371 square feet of tree canopy at 20 years post installation, which is exceeding a minimum of 15%. And that is with the trees that you see sort of, in this graphic. This graphic actually shows it in development with the school development side. So the limit of the application is really, kind of north-south of the west facade of garage B3. But it just shows, the graphic shows the entire sort of campus. So you can see the spaces related to each other. So it looks cohesive. As far as tree protection, we are following the city of Falls Church standards when it comes to tree planters. And that basically throughout the streetscapes along Haycock and Route 7. For the planters on the commons, actually, I can take a moment here to describe right on the commons. There's the commons on the median, which we call the actual gathering space, and then there are the sidewalks that flank the buildings where retail will sort of be a part of. The street trees along those sidewalks are actually bioretention planters along that streetscape, which means that they will but they will hold the stormwater and slowly sort of release it back into the system. And those types of planters have a certain standards that are designed to protect the trees and to add ponding surface and allow for the right combination of landscaping and plants to serve the bioretention function. So that we are introducing those into the streetscape as well. I hope that answers your question.
One more came up while you were talking about that. What kind of trees do we expect to plant?
Oh, there's a wide variety. We're excited to bring a full native plant palette to the trees and the shrubs. And the trees are a combination. We also have a requirement that we are self-imposing on the project, which is a biodiversity requirement. So no more than 25% of any species could be the same species. So we're bringing a tremendous variety of trees and shrubs to the project. Some of which that we are proposing are American elms, Princeton, the Princeton variety. We have a couple of different kinds of oaks. We do have maples and thornless honey locusts, as well as heritage river birch, to name a few. And they are sort of strategically located in the different streets to support the functionality of those streets, whether it is the retail street or some of the side streets or the frontage of Haycock and Route 7, and be appropriate for the scale and the spacing of those locations.
Perfect. Okay, so it looks like good comments. Sounds terrific. Thank you for planning a variety of natives. The developer will maintain the trees. Yes, the developer will maintain the trees and plantings and all of these pieces. And I think we had gotten into that on the Monday night council meeting. We do have an association that each of the building owners pay into, and that's what kind of manages and runs the site. Trash maintenance, snow shoveling, taking care of landscaping, planning events, and things like that. So sorry.
And maybe we'll go to the raised hand and then get back to the chat comments.
Sorry.
Claire Casey.
Hi, thank you. Several of the events you described that you have planned for the Little City Commons, like your movie night and your Taste of Falls Church, these are current programs that our City of Falls Church Recreation and Parks Department puts on every year, or at least when there's not a pandemic. We do the Sunset Cinema. They also have a Taste of Falls Church. They do a concerts in the park. Are you envisioning that you would be partnering with the city for these existing events? So, for example, the City of Falls Church Recreation and Parks Concerts in the Park this year will be held at the Little City Commons. Or are you thinking this would be kind of more in competition with what the city already has going on?
No, our goal is not to be in competition. I mean, we may add, maybe there are 4 concerts a year and we add 2 more or something like that. But the goal is to really be doing these in conjunction with Falls Church. And we have been working with kind of arts and humanities and parks and recreation for the last 2 years, starting to talk about this. And we're excited to continue the conversation as we go on. But we're seeing it more that we're creating another great venue for people to have these events in the city. So some of them could be here and some of them will still remain where they currently are.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a stormwater related question on the chat.
Yes.
And I can take a stab at it. I'm not the civil engineer, but I can kind of and speak to exactly the year storms that we have had, and that's a very good point. The site is designed to have layers of resilience that start at the roof and then continue the roof penthouse and then continue through courtyards and open space that is not necessarily footprint and then down, to the ground level. And so with all the architects and all of the consultants that are participating in different blocks, there's a full comprehensive system of stormwater management, with green roofs where appropriate, courtyard meaning elevated private courtyard spaces. You see those green rectangles on the yellow buildings. They will have components of fire retention at all levels. So there will be downspouts from the roof coming down to those areas. And then eventually whatever lands on the street either goes through permeable areas or through bioretention facilities. So there's kind of a multi-pronged approach to the storms we've seen. And the specific storm design and all of that, I would not speak with authority with all the details. Our civil engineer team can follow up with that question, with that answer. I hope
Yes.
that answers. And again, to elaborate a little bit more, there are even areas of the commons, there are hardscape areas, but they're designed to be permeable in an attempt to mitigate at every possible use the tools in the toolkit for stormwater management that we have at our disposal to make it a more comprehensive approach.
Exactly. Yes. So if there are further questions, we'd be happy to have the civil engineer provide a more detailed response. But Dave, hope that at least helps get the question started or the answer started.
So let's go back up in the chat.
Yes.
We had some.
So
So
there.
EUI values?
Yes. So I have to say also, I would like to refer those questions back to our sustainability consultant. Some of the energy calculations I don't have the full details of right now, but we can refer them to her and she can provide more detail on some of the EUI questions. There's a question from Catherine Williams. When will you start sharing exterior building materials, aesthetics, and palettes? Those actually are part of our SESP submission. I just didn't put them in this slideshow just because it gets a little bit detailed, but Carly, I don't know what the best way to share that would be.
I think when we're done, I'll pull up the project webpage and show where those materials are listed. And then of course, anybody can contact me directly and I can send you the links to those.
Right. What else?
So the next question, can we increase the charging ready spaces, have an opportunity to attract I-66 travelers prior to them arriving in DC?
Yes. So at this, actually, I think that we have Evan Goldman on this call. Evan, I'm going to reach out to you for 1 second to talk about the amount of charging stations and how we came to that number, if you're available.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Hi, everybody. Nice to see everybody again. So the charging stations was kind of a proffer that we negotiated the numbers of that we'd be providing as part of our VCs, but We've been having this conversation a little bit at the Planning Commission, at the council. The best practice these days in chargers, given how quickly the technology is adapting and getting so widespread, is to be more flexible and not prescribe you're going to do them here, here, and here. And so, for example, when I'll give an example of Pike and Rose, which was a big mixed use project I worked on in Rockville and North Bethesda. You know, when we started that project back in 2014, when it started construction, we included a certain number of EV charge spaces. As the building started getting occupied and we actually knew which specific office tenants wanted spaces, which specific apartment renters wanted spaces and chargers, it's really easy to lay the cabling, essentially the electric wiring, to provide those spaces in the future. And the EV charge companies will often pay for that infrastructure and then get paid by the person who is using the charge as on a monthly basis as a way to make back the money they spend on the infrastructure. So there's, we're going to do where the market demand is. There's very good market efficiency right now in this regard. And to the extent we have people in our project who are buying or leasing electric cars, we'll have the ability to retrofit the garages with that. There will be a certain number to start. We will have a fast charger for people who just want to, fill up like they're at a gas station. But that, yeah, there's every intent to make that available to people.
Great. So there is another question on the source EUI. So what we'll do for that is send these questions to the development team's sustainability coordinator and get those answers to you within the next few days.
Yeah, that's fine. If you send those to me today, I can get them over to her this afternoon. So.
And another one on stormwater. Will stormwater management include recycling of water for use in watering trees and plants and not just managed release into the stormwater system?
Gabby, do you want to take that one?
Well, actually, either you guys, Evan, because we have, that should be, if that question is answered, it's through the architecture of the building, and some of these we have not really involved. I mean, we are the landscape architects for the entire site and some of the amenities of the buildings, but specifically, if we don't have the team to answer that, we may have to table. I don't know if you have a better sense, Evan, of that on a per building basis.
I mean, at the buildings, we're not doing a full gray water recycling program where you're kind of bringing it in and then reusing that water, it's actually coming out of the hose to water the plants. But we do have a lot of these bioretention planted areas that will be watered. Part of their goal is to take in the water, but they are watered by the rain. And then, so we have kind of a mix of bioretention and then also release into the slowed release into the stormwater system. So treatment and release. But we can also, again, have the civil engineer provide more detail if that is not a sufficient answer to this question.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more right now, so I will get back to the fiscal part.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I'll cover this. So these tables, or this report has been updated with the current submission 2 plans. And these 2 tables you see here include the input values that we use in the model. It's the estimated real estate values for the different components, the unit type mix for the residential components, and square footages and sales per square feet for commercial. And so it's estimated, whoopsie, hold on. Nope. So it's estimated that the project would yield an annual net fiscal impact of approximately $4.9 million for phase 1. And the overall project value for phase 1 is roughly $375 million. And it's estimated approximately 69 pupils will be generated from phase 1. So this report you'll see includes the assumptions and information that the model inputs and results are based on. I'll just point out a few of them. For people ratios, we did use the pre-pandemic November 2019 numbers, and annual per pupil expenses approximately 16,000. We use the current real estate tax rate of 1.355, and previously the retail inputs we ran at 100% retail sales, and we reran those as 50-50 split between sales and service. So this is pretty consistent with what we saw with the first submission. So, and these, it is important to note that these numbers do continue to be refined as the project develops, building plans come in, that kind of thing. And of course, once the project gets built and stabilized, then that usually is aligned with what we see here, but can vary. So that's just kind of a quick summary of the fiscal. So I don't know if there's any specific questions on that one. But I'm checking my email and text. I don't think I've seen any come through. So I think I'll give a few more minutes for people to raise hands or place any comments in the chat. Okay. So as I said before, this is, whoop, I see a hand. Phil Duncan.
Thank you, Carly. I don't know if others have questions, but I just wanted to follow up on some of the points that were made at the council meeting the other night by the mayor, who I don't think is able to be here today. It really goes to the, I guess what I'd call the parking environment or the vehicular experience. I mean, we all have the highest hopes for this to be a pedestrian friendly and walkable environment. And I think once it's stabilized, the community itself will provide a good bit of that foot traffic. But at least in the early years, it seems likely that many, if not most people, will access this project by car. And the mayor brought up the other night, you know, the appearance, the external appearance of the parking garages, trying to make those, you know, kind of consistent with the exemplary qualities of the commons and, you know, the effort that's been put into all of that. And I realized that we've reached this stage, and I've never seen a picture, I think, of the inside of the garage as well. You know, it's a garage. What do you expect? Well, you know, we all know that there are garages and there are skeezy garages, you know. And I just, at some point pretty soon, I think it might be helpful to give folks a look at what the inside of the garage looks like, what, you know, technology we're going to use to steer people to available parking places, the kind of things that you see done at Tyson's and elsewhere that really make it, you know, convenient and friendly for somebody who's driving a car to access the project. So that's, I guess, a request maybe for a future council meeting, or maybe just a little preview now of what your thinking is in that area.
So I'm happy to answer what our thinking is on that area in terms of the majority of the garages, the B garage and the D garage, are above grade, and so they're going to be having natural light coming in and well lit at night. So I think that whole concern about how the garages will feel, we're going to have clear directional signage, you know, brightly painted colors so you can know what floor you're on. Again, exactly how that looks, we're still determining that, but I think it's going to feel like it is planned to feel bright and safe, and I think that that's extremely important. In terms of the exact parking technology, we plan to have at least counts for each garage outside of the garage, so you can see, you know, there's 2 spaces left, or there's 300 spaces left in this garage that are empty, and then anything else more advanced than that, we're looking into the possibility through the Smart City grant that has been given to or can be used partially for this project. So that's kind of where we are with the technology. And then we do have a garage that's underneath the apartment building that's going to serve mainly the grocery store shoppers. And again, that is planned to be brightly lit, clearly marked. You know, it'll feel safe and kind of clear direction on where you're going to be going through that. The exact height, I don't actually have that. Sorry for the internal heights of the garage. That was another question that just came up. Evan, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head. I'd have to take a quick look. In the
I don't,
drawings.
but typically, I mean, the precast above grade decks, which are, as Laura said, very open and airy, are typically 10 foot. I think they're 10 foot 8 floor to floor. I don't remember what the clear is, but there are great examples of it. Not to keep saying Pike and Rose, but the Pike and Rose garage is a good example of exactly what we'd probably be doing. So you can look and feel and touch that one. And there's others, I'm sure, in Fairfax County we can point you all towards, and we can get you that dimension.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful, Evan. Actually, still haven't had a chance to do any foreign travel and get over to Pike and Rose during the pandemic, but maybe I can hop in the car and make that trip. But yeah,
You don't need a passport anymore, which is nice.
Exactly. I was afraid they wouldn't let me come back to Virginia.
No quarantine necessary either. So
yeah, the traffic, the space count information that's available at Mosaic, that's helpful. But yeah, the kind of things you're talking about is where I'm going. The mayor brought up the other day, and since you have your landscape folks here, the possibility of vines or greenery or something on the garage externals that really face, the school or whatever, something that makes and you guys have built a lot of garages and you've seen more, what's your experience with that? Is it a maintenance issue? I mean, is there some reason that there's a reluctance to try to plant crawling vines up, a garage to make it appear a little less concrete?
So we are looking into doing those, and it is there are maintenance challenges, but I think the bigger piece that we're trying to figure out right now is that the garage is actually sitting right on the property line, and you need about 18 inches beyond the face of the garage to plant the vines. So we're trying to figure out the best way to kind of have that potential conversation about what we can do, or if we can detail them differently than that. I don't know, Gabby, if you have any thoughts about maintaining vines or keeping them alive so it looks good.
Yeah, like any plant, they're like any other plant that will require some level of maintenance, but it's no different than anything else. And the client is committed to provide the vines, provided that there's an agreement with the property owner, the school property, because that is their property right past the facade. The lucky, this is a fabulous location because it's a kind of a west-facing facade, which will receive a tremendous amount of light and sun. Accessibility. Vines thrive with sunlight and moisture. So this is a great opportunity to do so. It's just a matter of getting the legal piece worked out. But if it all works out, there is a strategy to provide vines so that they can kind of climb on the facade of the building.
Okay, that's great. I really appreciate y'all digging into that. I know it's not to speak for the mayor, but since he couldn't be here today, it's very important to him, and not just to the mayor, but it's something that I'm glad you all are looking into. One final question. So when we have fabulous festivals and close some or as many of the streets as we can, we have miniature versions of that when we close the Horseshoe at the Spectrum in front of Solace Outpost, and you can still access the parking garage to that development. You guys are a huge version of that. So some drawings that show, how I'm going to go to the grocery store when the Commons is closed down for a festival would just be one of those sort of practical questions that people ask us. Did you think about this, and how do I do it? So it'd be helpful if you could show us something on that, maybe at one of our upcoming meetings.
Okay. Right, I can actually walk you through kind of the answer to that, and I think the circulation diagram, we could probably just do an updated version of that to put it in writing. But for the garage B3, even if the central commons is closed, Mustang Alley will remain open, and you can access garage B3 from the Plan North Lane 4 off Mustang Alley, or Plan South Lane 3 off of Route 7. And then for the grocer garage and the D2 garage, you can enter that from Street B or Street C. And Street B you would get to by going down the alley. And then garage D3 also has access from Mustang Alley. So a lot of different ways to access all of these different garages. We agree it's really important to make sure that the site is can't have a great festival if nobody can get to the festival. So, or go grocery shopping while there is a festival. So,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously, people are going to learn their way around once it's built, and insiders will know the best way to get in and out. But and this speaks finally one last point to the grocery store question. If I had a nickel for every time somebody sent me an email saying, well, another grocery store, oh my God, how many can we have? I think people really believe that these groceries are all going to serve the 14,667 people of Falls Church. But obviously, the trading area for this development is much broader than that, wider. I don't know, Evan or Laura, you guys have spoken to this a little bit, but what is the area from which we are sort of thinking this node of activity will draw? How many people are involved in it?
So typically for retail, groceries as well, but for retail tenants, they look heavily on a 3 and 5 mile ring around the site. They'll look for people within the 1 mile ring to do daily shopping. They'll look for people within the 3 mile ring to do multiple times a week. And then within the 5 mile ring will be kind of your once a week or shopper for depending on the tenant. So for example, if you have a bowling alley, anchor, or a movie theater, they may look at 10 miles for somebody who might come once a month. And that's how they determine their trade area, both from a population perspective as well as a income perspective. In the case of grocers, it gets a little bit tighter because generally everybody shops at a grocery store. So they get a higher percentage of the population within a catchment area to actually shop. So they'll typically look at 1 and 3 mile rings. Within this market, because it's such a high dense area leading both towards Tyson's as well as towards downtown Cities Falls Church, the numbers in that 3 mile ring is very high. And so even though you do have a lot of grocery stores, you have different types of grocery stores. So Trader Joe's is something that somebody will often cross shop. They'll go to Trader Joe's and Giant. They'll go to Whole Foods and Giant and Harris Teeter. The grocery store we're bringing to bear is something a little bit more unique and different as well. And so it might be something where people cross shop 2 grocers within the same period of a week. So anyway, yeah, they would not be investing the money they're investing and would not have signed the lease if they didn't feel like the economic value was there for them. Grocery stores of all the retail tenants probably have the most sophisticated demographic software when they determine locations. And so they clearly think that there's demand for their product here, and we agree based upon what we've seen.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. It might be helpful to, maybe it's in the material, I forget, to see the 3 mile circle and how far that reaches.
Yeah, it takes you all the way to Tyson's, to the center of Tyson's. So
yeah, I assume it runs from Tyson's to McLean on the north to,
Boston.
Some chunk of Arlington on the east and certainly down to Mosaic on the south.
That's exactly right. That's the 3 mile ring. Yep.
So when people ask the grocery store question, that's my answer, is that, we're not just building for Littleville here. We're building for, not a regional destination, but certainly a activity node that covers that kind of area. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we did receive one additional question. Is there a listing of the components that make up expenses for the fiscal impact? There are, in addition to the pupil ratios, there's kind of the general government costs broken down by department. Basically, there's EMS services, and they each have their own specific value. I can work with Becky and Val in our economic development office to provide more specifics on that. I would need to talk to them. I know certain aspects of our model we don't readily share, I think. So I can get back in contact with you. That was from Planning Commissioner Tim Stevens. So we can reach out with more information on that. So I'm thinking that's all I'm seeing as far as comments in the chat and the email and whatnot. So the next steps, what I'll do this afternoon is those comments we received and questions needing some follow-up for the energy usage and water questions. I'll copy those from the chat and send them to the development team for them to provide responses within the next few days. And then again, the next council work session is May 3rd, and that's going to be focused on the affordable dwelling unit plan and voluntary concessions for the project. And then again, the May 24th is the tentative date for a final city council action. I did just recopy that information, the webpage information, into the chat. So, and then I did mention I was going to pull up the project webpage to show where those application materials are, because there is a lot of information on that site. So just give me 1 second. Okay, can people see this screen with the web page?
Yes.
We can.
Great, okay. So yeah, if you put in that link, the cleaner link, fallschurchva.gov/WFC is all you have to enter. It'll bring you to this. And then if you scroll down, that's kind of like the most recent stuff that has happened up here at the top. Project status, which I discussed at the beginning of this call. And then this is where the second special exception application materials are. And this is the second submission. So for the architecture sheets, it's going to be these links right here, and it will include, I'll try pulling it. It can be slow, but I'll see what happens. But it does include the elevations that have been shown at council meetings, as well as cross sections and floor plans. So this is what, the elevations we're used to seeing. It does include these sheets, which talks about the actual materials that will be used. And then it gets into the floor plans for each level. And that's the same for each building. So
Carly, maybe do we want to link to the presentation that we gave on March 1st to the council? That's probably in here too, because that shows kind of clarity on the major differences between the first and second submission of the SESP, or this first and second of this round. So you can see kind of clearly where we've responded to the comments.
yeah, let
Better
me,
understand that.
so this shows the upcoming and recent meetings. I think the March 1st might have got kicked to the past meetings page, but I'll get it put back on this table because that did have that good presentation. And then these links will be updated with the actual recordings later this week. So
Great.
I think with that, let me get back to. Another question, is the pool a private amenity?
Right, so the pool we'll be having is within the apartment building, and that is for the apartment residents. So yes, it's a private amenity.
Okay, well, I think that might be it for today. Want to thank you everybody again for coming, and again, my contact information is here, so please do reach out. And then we have one more question. Has there been any discussion updating the name of the project to align with the new high school name, for example, Meridian District?
So we have determined that the name of the project is going to be West Falls. We think it connects well to the metro and allows kind of as there's greater development of this space and the WMATA space to kind of allow various things at West Falls, building or something like that. So that's the direction we are going in, but we look forward to continuing to get into street naming, building naming, all of that, and that is going to reference other aspects of Falls Church and surrounding areas.
Carly, you may be muted. But I think that closes things out unless there was another question that I missed.
I was muted. Yeah, so I was saying that this meeting is recorded, so we'll post it on the webpage later today or tomorrow. So with that, again, thank you everybody for coming, and hope you have enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, thanks you all very
Carly.
much.
Thanks, Carly.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.